Hello and welcome to my golden extravaganza. See the pun there? Really funny, huh? So the other day I was in a used game store and I found the Sega Classics collection for the PlayStation 2. I have a PlayStation 2 and it was cheap, so I decided to pick it up. And what did I see on the cover here? But I believe we have Golden Axe. Now most of these collections basically just have ROMs of Genesis version of Golden Axe, but this one, let's see if I can zoom in on that, looks a bit different. If you look closely, it seems that this is not the arcade or a Genesis ROM. And you can't really tell on this video, but they look like they're made of 3D polygons, which leads me to believe it's something brand new. So I decided to check it out. It's Golden Axe. How bad could it be? I decided it'd also be kind of nice to do a bit of a retrospective. So I got the original arcade on the Wii Virtual Console. I've got some footage of that for you. I got some footage of the original Genesis version from the good old Sega 6-pack. Golden Axe is right number 2 there. And we got some footage from the Dreamcast version that was on the Sega Smash Pack. I was sure this was just a collection of ROMs, but it actually is a bit different. It's quite close to the arcade except for the sound, which is terrible. And just for giggles, I thought I maybe would show off, well, not the actual game, since it's just the Genesis ROM, which is exactly the same as what's on here. But they also made a PC version back in the days of Windows 95 that was basically the same as the Sega 6-pack. Kind of cool. And to round everything out, the Sega Master System version, which you probably didn't know about. They had some Game Gear type stuff, and Game Gear and Master System are basically the same hardware. But this one is the arcade. As you can see on the back here, it's supposed to be the arcade. They tried to make it the arcade, but you know, it's an 8-bit system. Speaking of the Sega Master System, let's start there. Here is their version of Golden Axe. So you have a nice background picture here, which is very nice for the Master System. Shows off its color palette. Unfortunately, due to space constraints, you got Axe Battler, or Axe Battler to choose from. None of the other two characters, because they just didn't have the space. And considering how choppy and hard to control this kind of is, that might have been the correct decision. It actually doesn't look too bad, although despite having a nicer color palette than the NES, the colors are pretty ugly. And as I was saying earlier, the speed is pretty choppy, so it's a pretty subpar port, but it's actually rather impressive for what the Master System could do. I mean, you wouldn't really expect it to be able to do the Golden Axe arcade this well. And although it's somewhat of a success, ultimately it's not very fun. Sorry. But it does seem to follow the Golden Axe arcade quite closely. So, I'll give it some props for that. Okay, so let's move along here. Next up in line is the Genesis port of the arcade. And this actually looks very nice. It's, one of the system sellers for the original Genesis after all. As you can tell, our little monster we're riding is now properly pink instead of blue, like half of everything on the Master System. So, back in the days they would have called this arcade perfect or something. It's not, but it's very nice. Has all 3 characters, and it has a few extra stages too. Oh, here's I believe this is the Dreamcast version, which looks like the arcade. You can tell the color depth is quite a bit nicer here. but those sound effects, they're terrible. I think the Master System had better sound effects. I mean, listen to this. What we're really? I know the Dreamcast can do better than this. Come on. So here we are going on to the giant turtle, speeding things up. So on this one we got the nice villagers going through in full color. So we switched to Tiris. I wanted you to be able to see all the characters. She's got the regular chainmail bikini, because, you know, why not? Yeah, the sound is pretty terrible. Otherwise, it's a pretty excellent port. But the sound really lets it down. And now you get to see the arcade. See how much better this sound is? So we're back to Guyless because, you know, he's the better one. Hear that cool skeleton scream? It always reminded me of one of those Sinbad movies that had the nice cool stop motion skeleton warriors I used to see back in the day on like Saturday morning old school movies on TV. And that scream there, I hear they actually stole that from like a Rambo movie or something. When I was researching this, I heard that. So, to see, that sound is actually good. You got these nice cool skeletons popping out of the ground. I remember this being in the arcade. It was way cool back then. So anyway, see that cool eagle? I like how the eye is animated. That's really cool. And then you fall off the world because of stupid level design like that. Okay, so let's get to the most recent one, this PS2 version. And suddenly we have a cutscene with a bunch of polygons and pictures. That's sort of pseudo Greek mythology stuff. So the title screen looks nicer. We have nice drawings of the people, but they all look like, Tiris there looks like she got cut up and sewed back together. Guyless got hit with the ugly stick too many times. And even though Axe Battler looks like he's working for the Pride Parade, he looks like the best designed character. So right off the bat, it's got some pretty nice Golden Axe inspired music. The engine here kind of reminds me of like budget PS2 titles, which considering we had, you know, 20 games on one disc is basically what this is. I'm specifically thinking of the Shaman King video game for the PS2. And as you can tell, they changed around the levels quite dramatically. So one of the things you could have pretty rightfully complained about for the arcade version was that it's pretty short. When I was playing the Virtual Console edition, I actually was able to win the whole thing in about 20 minutes. This one I probably went on for over an hour and didn't win. So while they have a ton more content, yeah, that's a nice flashy screen, but it gets really old by the 30th time you see it. So even though they have a lot more content, all of the content is really dull. And see right here, I was expecting they'd do something cool, like a big monster come out of the waterfall and then beat it up. But no, just a bunch of grunts come out, you hit the grunts, repeat, walk forward half a screen. It's basically all the worst aspects of the side-scrolling brawler game genre without any of the redeeming qualities. When Golden Axe the arcade came out, it was new and different. This not so much. So here we got a gratuitous shot of Tiris' backside, some gnome stealing your stuff in the completely uninteractive manner that, was interactive in the arcade. And suddenly there was all 3 people there. So we're at the end of level 2, and suddenly they start trash talking Tiras, who I haven't been playing as. And we got the giants. It should have been at the end of level 1. So as you can probably tell, they're kind of just spreading things out as possible. Oh, something I forgot to say, they totally ruined the jump mechanic. So in the original game, you can jump in the air and swing your sword or axe or whatever and hit people. But in this, you just sort of jump and fall down and defenseless for a couple minutes. It's really terrible. So I think this is probably supposed to be the village where we fought the dragons in the original. Despite this being like, what, level 3 or 4 now? I'm not sure. This thing went on forever. And there's the dragon. And as you can see, there's all these nice pretty particle effects, but the 3D models are not very inspired. And really just shows what good rendering can do. And so suddenly I'm off my dragon and slashing people through the gut. And you have a cutscene. For no reason. It's supposed to advance the story, but it didn't. Which is why I skipped ahead to the end of the stage. Let's see, I'm skipping ahead to a lot of end of stages. Right here I just skipped ahead until I got dragon again. And then as soon as I got the dragon, I'm off the dragon. And we're telling Tiras what to do. Tiras, you go do stuff. Like, really? Where are all these people when I'm fighting? It's not like you couldn't have a computer-controlled helper character. And here I was overjoyed because we actually got something new. It's not just a bunch of characters that we've seen before, recycled 500 times. This is the one, and from what I can tell only, but I didn't finish the game, appearance of a Minotaur! If there had been more like that in the game, it might have been better. So here, if you remember in the arcade part, I was showing you this, it's basically the same thing. We're packed on the back of a giant eagle. Not much to say here, except for it looks kind of more artificial than the original. I will give it credit, those giant bird wings flying around in the background. Pretty cool. But that's about all I'm giving it credit for. And so, since I'm tired of this, we'll skip to the end of the arcade. Like I was saying earlier, the Genesis got one extra level after this, in which case this was Death Adder Jr. But in the arcade, that was in fact Death Adder. And if you read the title credits, it looks like they supposed to name Death Equal Adder and Axe Equal Battler and stuff like that. It's really kind of weird. But anyway, the Genesis added another basically color swap copy at the end with a hard level. But in this is the end of the arcade, and suddenly we get silliness. Altered Beast was kind of silly too, where you found out that everyone was just in like makeup and costumes. But here everyone escapes from the arcade. A lot of you kids may not even know what an arcade is anymore. And so our heroes have to escape from the arcade too, and go running after them. It's so silly and funny that I figured it'd be a good way to end the video. So there you have it, my golden extravaganza. I hope you enjoyed the show. Rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.